Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today, I'm going to be talking about disabled toilets. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a bit of a weird topic, and I'm not in a toilet just for the sake of the embarrassment. Like, can you imagine I'm in my school, college toilets, someone walking past and they just hear me like, right, and this is why we need this in here, and this is why it's annoying when people use the toilet. Like, it would be an awkward situation, especially if they needed the toilet as I came out, like, it would just be awkward. So instead, I'm out here, I'll either show pictures as I'm going along, or, I'm pretty sure I can just describe a handrail to you guys. And that's going to be the first thing, is disabled toilets have lower door handles than most toilets. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, it's not something that people really pay attention to. But they're slightly lower, not too low that, tall people couldn't reach down to get it. But also not high enough that it's going to be an issue to reach up to grab the door handle, which is already a massive help. The next thing is the size of the toilet, because you need to first off fit the chair through the doorway. Most toilets I've seen, most normal male toilets, I couldn't fit my wheelchair into. Plus, I need the cubicle, which is this next part that I'll talk about. But yeah, the toilet needs to be big so I can maneuver my wheelchair in there, get out of my chair, get in it, get to a position that I need to be, turn it to get in and out. That's quite important. Some toilets aren't quite as good for this. There is one at my college that is a real pain in the arse just because it's a little bit too small. It's not too small that I can't use it, I can still turn around, I can still do everything, but it's, it's still a bit difficult. And I think that is something that it is just kind of me being nitpicky with my college toilet. It's not exactly like a really difficult challenge to overcome. The next thing is handles on the inside of the doors. Now, this kind of relates to something I mentioned earlier, but most disabled toilets have a handrail on the door. Now, this is obviously for support, to stand up and stuff if you have difficulties with your legs. But they're also really useful for shutting the door. So when you're in a wheelchair, if you've opened the door and you've gone through, you then have to reach all the way back to reach the door handle to pull it shut, or reach the door, the edge of the door, and then pull it in. However, because of the handrails that are usually on them, going from one side to the other, it means that we can go in, reach anywhere back, and grab onto the handrail and pull it in from any point. Obviously, it is also for support, to keep you from falling over, but I feel like that is the main purpose of those handrails, is to shut the door behind you. Now, you may be thinking, why don't you just turn around? You was just mentioning about the size. But it is a bit easier to be able to just reach behind you to grab the door handle that's the entire length of the door, rather than reach back to reach the specific door handle, or go in all the way, turn around, reach the normal door handle, normally just forwards, shut the door, turn back around to then use the toilet. Again, this is just my experience with disabled toilets, and I could be really misinterpreting the purpose of these utilities in disabled toilets and the designs. The next thing that I wanted to mention is the toilets themselves. Now, actually, the toilets aren't that different. Normally, the lever or the button to flush them is, again, a bit more of an accessible height, because, it's not going to be on a really high place when wheelchair users can't reach it. And the same with sinks. A lot of the sinks there have, a lower sink. And that's, again, just for the height situation, where you're not having to wash your hands like this, where your hands are, up above your head, and then you've got water splashing all over your face. It's easier when it's just the right height. You can, wash your hands. Now, I'm pretty sure it says in the disabled toilets, but you may be thinking, what is the, red string in there for? If you've ever seen one and don't know what I'm on about, there's a red string that goes usually from the ceiling to the floor, and it looks like one of those pool lights. And that is an alarm, usually, I think. I'm pretty sure it's just a standard for disabled toilets, and that's in case when you're in the toilet and you fall over, or something happens and you're stuck, or anything like that, you can reach from the floor. Because I think they have to be touching the floor. I don't know if it can be like a couple of inches above the floor or if it has to be touching the floor. But if you've fallen out of your wheelchair and you're stuck on the floor and can't get back in, then you can go over to it and pull the cord, and then it will send help to either the reception or send an alarm just outside the toilet, which will, alert people of an issue. But again, it's I don't know the exact standards for that, but that is usually what they're there for, is for reaching them. And one thing that I have noticed in one of my old schools was that the cable they had, not the cable, but the string they had for activating this system was tied up. Like, the people that set it up tied a knot in it to keep it up off the floor, which I then had to explain to them isn't what that's designed for. Like, luckily I was the only person that really had an issue with it. Like, I didn't need to use the thing at any point. I can always transfer into my chair. I can do quite a lot of standing as well, so it wasn't an issue for me. But the fact that I had to go to my school and be like, hey, that's meant to be on the floor in case that happens, was a bit worrying. So if that is something at your school or workplace or anything like that, might be worth speaking to a reception about, because I'm not sure about the legalities or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure it is a standard thing. As I mentioned before, disabled toilets usually have quite a lot of handrails, especially near the sink and right next to the toilet, so you can stand up using these rails to support yourself, push up off of, or slowly lower yourself onto the toilet. And then obviously for washing your hands you need a handrail, in case you need that to support yourself, steady yourself. I'm trying to think of other things, but I don't think there is any. Obviously you've got bins for disposing of catheters and any medical equipment, but I think that is everything with disabled toilets that you need to worry about, at least the designs. Now, some of the reasons why it's important that disabled people have priority over a disabled toilet should be obvious. The fact that it's an accessible toilet, and there's usually not as many as just regular toilets in a building. Like, I think my school's main building, back in school, before college, had 2 male and 1 female toilets in the main building, plus 1 disabled toilet. And one thing that I forgot to mention back in the features is the fact that it's just 1 room. It's just a single toilet cubicle, rather than where it's like the urinal, because there's no point in that, because it's a single person uses the toilet at once. But yeah, there's no urinal, there's no booths, there's no stalls for actual toilets to shit in and stuff, like. And that isn't just because of a privacy thing, it is also probably because of a privacy thing, like, there are certain disabilities where you might feel worried about using a public toilet. Or that you may have issues where using a toilet that other people use becomes an issue. Trying to think of some examples. I'm pretty sure there are some, but I'm just trying to think of them off the top of my head. The reason why they're single use is because they need it to be this big space, they need it to be this specialised thing, and it does take up quite a lot, and there shouldn't be that many people using them, but there always is. And the reason why I think it's annoying when people who don't need disabled toilets use them is because there's so many issues. Obviously, it is the only accessible toilet. That should be the first thing, is that I can't use any other toilet. You can. Fuck off. The fact that some disabilities will affect the bladder and the bowels, for example. I used to have issues with that. If I needed the toilet, I needed the toilet pretty much instantly, or ASAP, because I couldn't really hold it. I had issues with that. And that was before catheterizing. So having to wait for someone to come out that doesn't need it at all is annoying. Now, obviously, I'm not saying, oh yeah, you shouldn't be using the toilet just because you don't need it as much as me. No, like, use the disabled toilet if you're disabled, use the regular toilet if you don't have a disability. Like, I know this is sounding a bit like weird, I guess, and it is kind of difficult to be like, no, only disabled people are allowed to use the disabled toilet, but it should be an obvious thing. It should be a thing where, like, oh yeah, disabled people go in the disabled toilet, and then people use the excuse, oh yeah, but the normal toilet was full, and there was so many people in there, it was busy, so I had to wait, and I saw the disabled one was free, so I went in there, and it's like, yeah, but like, that's not the point. It's the only accessible toilet, and it's the one that, like, people with issues with the toilet will need. And the last thing that I want to mention is the bins. I mentioned it in the features, but like, the reason why disabled toilets need to have the bins is for the medical equipment, which we're not allowed to put in regular bins. I once got in trouble because they didn't have a medical syringes bin, because that comes under catheters as well for some reason. But like a bile, blood, urine bin. And my school told me, like, you're not allowed to put your catheters in the tampon bin. And it's like, well, yeah, but you don't have the bin that you're meant to have, so what am I meant to use? I'm not going to be carrying a bag of piss with me all day, so provide the equipment. And this is, again, just a very specific dig at my old school. I loved the teachers, I loved everyone there and stuff, but there was a lot of things that I noticed about it that really did get on my nerves and really did provide an issue, and can provide issues for many other people, way worse than I had it. And in college, I've not had much of an issue. A lot of them are radar key based, which is a really good system. Most places that have a radar key system will have staff with a radar key in case you don't have one. However, if you have a disability, I would recommend getting one. Obviously, use proper etiquette, knock on the door before just open up. There's your dick. Oh no. Yeah, that was a shit joke. Anyway, I feel like I've gone on about toilets in the middle of public for long enough. I just really wanted to cover that because it was in my notes for videos to make, and I thought, hey, why not talk about shit today? But I hope people without disabilities find this useful to maybe understand why you should give up the disabled toilet to someone that is disabled. It's a sentence that I shouldn't have to say, in my opinion. Like, it shouldn't be a topic that I have to talk about, but hey, I did. So there you go. Thank you for watching. This was a really weird video. I felt really uncomfortable because I'm talking about this stuff, like, in the middle of public, in the middle of a forest. That is a real tree. So God knows what people walking past thought me. Yeah, peace.